Hi friends, I'm Jess, and welcome to the Hexed Library, where I post reading, writing, book, and planner related content occasionally. Today we're going to do my wrap up for the month of June, which was the amazing Readathon. Hence the shirt. Are we a smidge behind on this? Is it August 6th? Yes. However, I read a lot of books in June and we were still catching up from April and June, and we're just, it's been time. This is going to be long enough without me explaining to you all of the discrepancies of my life. So let's just figure out what we're doing and hop into it. Okay. As stated, June was the amazing Readathon. So this is a readathon hosted by Bree at Four Paws in a Book. I will link Bree down below if you want to join us in for all of the crazy fun next year. It is a readathon based off of the game The Amazing Race. There are teams, it's competitive. My alarm is going off to water the plants because it's 7 o'clock and Merlin's here. We're having a great time. Okay, because we're going to be talking about so many books in this video, I will be doing the Balancing the Books bingo / bingo board from hell in a separate video, which will be coming up following directly after this one, if it ever sees the light of day. So in the month of June, I read 24 books for a total of 6,113 pages. I wanted to say 6,111.13. That was not a real number. My average rating was a 3.8, which is pretty close to where we've been at for the year. We're averaging about 4 stars every month, so no complaints. However, there were a lot of books this month that I didn't rate, but we'll talk about those when we get to them, because again, we're going to be going through these in a little bit of a special way. I will be telling you what city these were for, what the prompt was, and what team I was on, because as a producer I switched teams every round of the readathon. It was an interesting time to be for sure. I had a lot of fun, and I do plan to within the next month or so post a video as well about co-hosting Readathon, because there's kind of a lot that goes into even when you're just a co-host for a Readathon, and I just kind of want to like share my experience with all of that. So that's another thing coming up that you can look forward to as well. The first city was Toronto. I was on Team Fantasy, and the prompt was a book that you didn't purchase, and so I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, and I gave that a 3.75 out of 5 stars. So Daughter of No Worlds is a romantasy. Let's go with that. It follows our main character, who is essentially kidnapped as a child and put into slavery as some sort of like a performer or a dancer, and at some point in her childhood she tried to buy her freedom, and this enslaver kind of laughed at her and was like, actually you need X amount of dollars for me to set you free. Little does he know, or she know, that that actually isn't a real plan, and he never plans to let her go. But she does save up the money. She goes to him, she's like, yo, here's the dollar bills that you said that I needed to save, and he just kind of laughs at her and is like, no, you're mine forever. And so she takes care of the problem. She then has to go on the run because he was a pretty powerful dude. She goes on the run. She tries to join this group of people who use magics to help people, and they send her to this guy who is like a recluse and has his own backstory of crazy, and he's supposed to train her but doesn't want anything to do with the organization that she has joined. So it's kind of like her trying to convince him to train her, and also him trying to come to grips with things that he's done in his past, and her trying to deal with things that's happened in her past, and all of these things happen. It was a time. I did really enjoy it. I think that it had some pacing issues because the first half of the book was definitely one thing and the back half was something else, but I did have a good time. I liked the characters. I liked the world building. I'm definitely interested in continuing on with the series. I have not been to this point big into the romantasy genre, so this was kind of like a stepping point for me. I have read some of Throne of Glass, but I don't know that I would consider that necessarily what romantasy is at this moment, whereas I feel like Daughter of No Worlds is definitely more of what current romantasy is from my viewpoint of nothing, because I don't know the things, but it feels like that's more accurate to what it is currently. I'm not huge into the romantasy genres yet, but I'm working in, and I'm actually working through some other things right now, so definitely expect to see more from the romantasy genres for me in the future. Our next city was Buenos Aires, and for that I was on team romance, and the prompt was to read a book with 2 points of view, and I ended up reading what we turned into a group buddy read for Team Romance, and that was Role Playing by Kathy Yardley. I gave this a 4.25 out of 5 stars. This book follows 2 main characters. I'm going to call them by their gamer names, which are Otter and Bogwitch. So Otter is, I think he's like 49, I think Bogwitch is 50. They're middle-aged. Bogwitch's son has recently went off to college, and they used to play this online video game together, and because her son is now gone, she's looking for a new group to join. She finds out that one of the ladies that she knows from church, her son goes to the local college, and he is like the leader of this group that plays the same game. So Bogwitch and Otter end up with each other's information, end up in this group together. The problem is that he thinks it's his mom's friend from church, so he thinks that Bogwitch is an octogenarian, and she thinks that Otter is a young college student because he's a college student, so she thinks he's like in his 20s, and they don't meet until like halfway through the book, face to face, and that's when they figure it out. It is a fun time. I really love this book. I loved that there was an older couple. I'm sure that books exist where the couples are older, but this is probably the first one that I've read. I've read some with couples in their 30s, but this is definitely like the first one I've read where they were anywhere near 50. And I really enjoyed that older adult romance with like grown adult children. Fantastic. Also love the viewpoint of dealing with aging parents, because I kind of deal with that myself at this point in my life. So I was interested in that aspect of it as well. Their romance was so well done. It's like a second chance at life romance for them, and it was done so well. The spicy scenes were great. The just romance connection, all of it was so well done, and I really enjoyed the characters and the romance and all of the things about this book. So cannot recommend this more highly. Obviously I had to buy a trophy for my shelf. I also read another book while in Buenos Aires, and that was Planes, Trains, and All the Fields by Libby Hart. I gave that a 3.75 out of 5 stars. If you've read any of Libby's other books, I've read Talk Flirty to Me and Some Kind of Blunderful Both. I think this is definitely in line with that. It is her debut, so it's not as good as the other 2, but definitely there. I enjoyed the romance. I liked the banter between these 2 characters. They are going on a cross-country road trip. Kind of in like when they meet each other, they kind of have a bashing heads moment, and then they're trying to get across country for different reasons. She's trying to get to her sister's wedding. He's trying to get to his sister's house because there's some things going on. His sister's taking care of their mother, and he thinks there's something wrong happening that she's not telling him, so he's trying to get there to like take care of things. And air travel becomes impossible, and so then they like rent a car, and then something happens to the rental car, and they take a train, and then something happens to the train, and then they take, I don't know, a speedboat. It's a time. Like all of the traveling mishaps that you expect to happen do happen. And the thing about this main couple is that no matter where she goes, she is able to like assimilate herself into the locals, and like she finds people, she finds out what they need, and she helps them. Like no matter what it takes her to do, she will help these people figure it out. She is like a problem solver, and it's really funny to watch her as she's like trying to get to her sister's wedding. It's so close, and yet so much is happening, and she's really struggling to get there, and I really enjoyed it. I think that it had some pacing issues, and as far as like, see, there's the thing. I don't like public, I don't like the romantic public gestures. I don't like public proposals. I don't like the third act. I'm talking like in real life too. I hate public proposals in real life. I don't like third act resolutions where they do it like in front of like the whole family, the grand gesture. I don't like those being public. And so that's kind of where this lost some points for me, because it gives me the ick. I don't like it. I feel like that's like a huge moment that should be shared between the two people who are in the relationship, no matter how much you like your family. And I also think that, especially with like public proposals, it's like putting pressure on someone to say yes because they don't want to embarrass you in front of a bunch of people by saying no. So I mean, y'all do you, but it gives me the ick. So that's why this wasn't rated a smidge higher. The next city was Berlin, and I was on Team Spooky, and the prompt was movement in the title, and so I read The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. Murder being the movement. I give that a 3.5 out of 5 stars. This is, I would call this a cli-fi, a climate science fiction-y novel. It follows this town on an island where the entire world at this point had been surrounded by this fog that essentially just killed everyone. And these people on this island have been able to stop the fog from getting to the island, and they've been living in peace and harmony. And the elders of the village basically have like told them what they need to do in order to keep themselves from becoming victims of this fog. And there is a murder that happens, and once the murder happens, the fog starts to come in, and they have like 48 hours, I think, to solve the murder before the fog comes in and kills them all. This book definitely had some serious plot twists, especially in the back half, that really threw me for a loop and had some definite like fun vibes. But I do think that the pacing on this was really off. That was its major downfall. And it was a bit boring in the beginning because everything was just very repetitive of things that were happening. And I also, the murder solving aspect of it was kind of weird as well. It wasn't really how I expected it to go, but the world building was really well done, especially once you get deeper into the world and see what's actually going on. The plot twists, the plot devices, things of that nature, once you get further in, were done really, really well. I think if you like cli-fi, then you will probably like this book. The next city was Paris. I was on Team Sci-Fi, and the prompt was for a book that has won an award, and for that I read Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. I give this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. Dead Silence follows a team of people in space who are salvagers, and they get an SOS from a ship that is essentially the Titanic but in space, and it has been missing for like 80 years, and they're not sure how they're getting a distress signal from it, but they decide to go and investigate it. But they also know that if they get into trouble, they're kind of fucked because they are so far out. They get to this location, and it is a dual timeline. So we're seeing the aftermath of the main character, what's happening to her being questioned about what happened on the ship, and also what happened on the ship. And then at some point the timelines merge, and things start to progress forward. So once they find the ship, they figure out what happened, and it's very strange what happened on this ship. The people were alive at some point after the ship's distress signal, after it stopped operating. There was weird things going on. They're finding bodies in places that you wouldn't expect to find a body. They're finding very weird wounds on people. They are trying to put things together as to what happened, and they're also kind of losing their cool. It was a wild time. This one definitely had good world building. I liked the characters, but I wasn't like in love with the characters, but they were good. I liked some of them better than others. Some of the plot twists were really well done. I think the main downfall for this book is that I don't think every book needs to have a romance, and the romance that was in this kind of felt shoehorned in, and it made things feel a little weird. So that is basically my main qualm with that. But I did really enjoy the story, and I definitely will pick up more from Barnes in the future. The next city is Cape Town. I was on Team Fantasy. The prompt was a book with nature on the cover, and for that I read A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallace Kenny. I have an ARC of this book. Also, Wallace is a friend of mine. I've read an earlier version of this. It was one of my favorite books that I've ever read, but I do know that that version is not the version that we currently have being published, because the original version was basically written for Wallace's sister, and had a lot of very cheesy details that, you know, made it maybe not marketable, but made me absolutely love it. It's basically a love letter to all of the things that us millennials love about fall time. I know that those are still within it. I'm not going to read it today. I will be doing a release day video for this on October 8th, but I will read you the synopsis from the publisher. Hecate Goodwin, Kate to her friends, has curated the perfect life as a hedge witch, living in a secluded cottage with only a black cat for company. She spends her days foraging herbs from the Ipswich forest, gardening and creating tinctures to sell at the apothecary she owns. Most evenings pass without her speaking to another human being, an arrangement she quite prefers. Kate's solitude is thrown into disarray when her older sister Miranda reaches out and asks her to host their coven's annual Halloween gathering. The day marks the beginning of the new year for witches and is also Kate's birthday. The pressure from her coven to make the evening memorable mounts as the event grows near. To complicate things further, a handsome man from Kate's past turns up at her cottage, asking for sanctuary. It is Kate's duty as a hedge witch to honor this request, much to her dismay. Matthew Cypher is no ordinary lost soul. He's a practitioner of forbidden magic who tricked Kate once before, and her guard is up. As she juggles Matthew's arrival and the preparations for Halloween, Kate comes across an old tome shrouded in dark magic. She's horrified when she realizes the blood-red inscription is written in familiar handwriting, her recently deceased mother's. Afraid to even touch the dark magic her mother secretly studied, Kate can only turn to Matthew for help. Her idealized memory of her mother begins to distort, and as she and Matthew grow closer, Kate has to reevaluate whom she can really trust. A Dark and Secret Magic is a celebration of the Halloween season and a love letter to anyone who drinks pumpkin spice in August and carries the spirit of a witch inside their heart all year long. So, as you can tell, obviously a story that I love, but again, full review to come in October. New day, new nickel. My battery died, and that was yesterday, and so I had to charge the battery, and now we're back. So we just finished off Cape Town, so let's go to Faceoff weekend. On Faceoff weekend, I was actually on Team Chaotic Loki variants. Those of us who are producers were just having a good time, making things harder for y'all to accomplish. And so I read 8 books during Faceoff weekend. Most of them were not rated because I read a lot of companion novels for the Percy Jackson series. So things that I've never really took the time to read before, but I thought would be just like fun and interesting additional information because I am hoping to hop back into book 6 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians soon. So I read The Demigod Files, which is Camp Half-Blood centric, Camp Half-Blood Chronicles, again, Camp Half-Blood centric, Hotel Valhalla, which is a guide to Norse worlds. Those 3 were not rated. I also read the original 5 Percy Jackson and the Olympians graphic novels, so Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, Titan's Curse, Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. I did rate those based off of like graphic novel levels. So Lightning Thief, Sea of Monsters, The Last Olympian were all 4 stars. Titan's Curse, Battle of the Labyrinth were 3 stars. I think if you are, like me, getting ready to jump into book 6 and you haven't read the series in a while and you don't want to take the time to reread the whole series, then they're a good catch-up that you can do fairly quickly. But they really do lose a lot of the heart of the novels, which tends to happen oftentimes when novels are changed into graphic novels. But that's neither here nor there. That is what I did over Faceoff weekend. Because when I was still in the midst of Faceoff weekend, I was actually reading Brooklyn House Magician's Manual, which was the Percyverse companion to the Kane Chronicles. That's what it is. When we got to, I'm gonna say this wrong, Antananarivo, that city, I was on Team Genfic, and it was a book that included gods or religion, and because I had just been reading The Magician's House Manual, and because it includes gods, in mythology and religion. I did finish that for my prompt for Team Genfic, and that was not rated because that was so short, and I also had some other things going on. I also read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is where we get really funny. I listened to the audiobook of Rebecca. I gave it 4 stars. I was actually really surprised by how much I enjoyed it, because if you know me, you know that like those older classics are not really my jam. And then at some point I realized that the audiobook that I listened to was an abridged version, even though it doesn't say anywhere on it that it's abridged. The fact that it was 4 hours and the other audiobooks for Rebecca are 14 hours, I'm assuming that it's abridged. So take that with a grain of salt, if you will. I was like, this is a great classic. I wish I had read this one sooner. But really though, do I? Because it's a problem. I did though since purchase the book, and I do want to read the whole book this time, just to see how I feel about it. I also then read again still for Team Genfic, The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I was reading this for my local indie bookstores book club. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. If you, for some reason, don't know what this book is about, it is set in the, I can never remember if it's set in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, somewhere around about in there. It was first published in 1967. So you decide when it was set, 50s or 60s. And it basically is like the haves versus the have-nots, and we are following one of the have-nots who's attacked by some of the haves. One of his friends inadvertently kills one of those people, and they have to go on the run. And it's really just like this slice of life story where you're hearing about a few weeks or months in this life of these couple of characters, and it is so well done. It is one of my favorite classics that I've read now. Speaking of things I wish I had read sooner, I really enjoyed this. I loved our group discussion about it. I think that it really deals with the differences between people who have, you know, more money, more problems, as they say. But there's definitely some parts in here where some of the characters who have money talk about how everybody has their problems. And while that is true, looking at the differences between the types of problems that they have is very interesting, and to see the differences between people. Really enjoyed this one. And I also read Ima Koi Volume 1. This was a host favorite, I think. I don't really remember at this point. It was too long ago. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was cute. It was interesting. It was not really my jam, but I picked up more of them afterwards. So, yeah, you know, it was good. I do like the art style. And I do still technically prefer graphic novels over manga, but that's just because I like color. I like the liveliness of, like, you know, the giant graphic novel. But that's just me being a snob. So, I did enjoy this, obviously because I gave it 4 stars. It's just like a romance between a goody two-shoes girl and a bad boy, except I don't really know that he's a bad boy. We then went to sale, and I was on Team Spooky again, and the prompt was a book with a source of light on the cover, and for that I read Never Lie by Freida McFadden, because there are lights on the cover. This one was a giant battle in the chat. Not this book, but this prompt. It was a time, my friends. A time. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did really like this one. Here's the thing with Freida McFadden. I've probably read, I don't know, 6 or 12 of them at this point. It's so many that I don't remember how many it's been. I've read a lot. They're not the best written books ever, but they are a fun time. Even when I don't really love the plot, I still have a good time. I haven't hated any yet, so I'm going to continue to read them. This one in particular follows newlyweds who are looking for a house. They visit a remote manor that used to belong to a doctor who was a psychiatrist, vanished without trace years ago. A winter storm traps them at the estate, and the house begins to lose its appeal. They're stuck inside. The wife stumbles upon a collection of audio transcripts that the psychiatrists, that were the psychiatrist sessions with her patients. And she starts listening to the cassette tapes, and she learns about the terrifying chain of events leading up to the doctor's mysterious disappearance. With each tape, another shocking piece of the puzzle falls into place, and a web of lies slowly unravels, but by the time Trisha finds the final cassette, the one that reveals the entire horrifying story, it will be too late. how did they get there in the middle of nowhere, trapped in the middle of winter in this house, and what's going on, and blah, 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 yada, blah, blah, blah. You know? It was a good time. We then went to Bangkok and I was on Team Sci-Fi, and the prompt was a book with 5 colors on the cover, and for that I read Daughters of the Deep by Riordan. I gave this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. This is definitely not the Percyverse. It didn't have like the fun and the heart and the just enjoyment that I have in reading the Percyverse, but I did like the characters and I did like the story. It definitely is more science fiction-y, but it is based off of kind of like the Jules Verne, Someone Help a White Girl Out. You know, that However Many Leagues Under the Sea book. Is that Jules Verne? Right. I could be completely wrong right now. Just go with it. Anyway, she is our main character and is a freshman at Harding Pencroft Academy. It's a high school where people go that are marine scientists, naval warriors, navigators, and underwater explorers. Her and her brother Dev both go to this school. There's also a rival school that's like the Land Institute, and they have been trying to take over the Water Institute people for a long time, and there's just like this major battle and some plot twists. And there was a plot twist that actually had me yelling out loud in this book in anger. So I'll leave you with that. We then went to Auckland and I was on Team Genfic again, and that prompt was a book with water on the cover. Thank the Lord, because I needed to read Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series. I'm reading these with Bethany and Ingrid and Izzy and Isabella and Alex for the Mass Effect read-along. I will, until we're finished with this read-along, which is going to be going through, as far as we know, to 2025, it is permanently linked in my description box down below. Bethany's announcement video. You can join in and you can jump in and join us at any time. We are up to book 4 of Throne of Glass, and we've read book 1 of A Court of Thorns and Roses so far. We will be reading through all of Sarah's books. Anywho, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. When I first read the series, I quit reading after book 2. It was in 2018, and I was like, they're fine. Like, they're not my favorite thing ever. They're okay, they're fine. And I was like, I don't really know that I want to continue on reading. What I have discovered is that was my mistake, because this book was fantastic. I reread both books for this read along, and then also read the novellas, because we read 1, 2, and then novellas, and then went to 3. And I think that was really well placed. Actually, don't start out with the novellas. It's a bad plan. But I really enjoyed this. I had a really good time. I like the characters and I like the world building. I love, 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 love. If I didn't mention love, Manon and Abraxas. This is so much. Like, I can't. All of the, we get new points of view. Okay, we get Manon. She is a witch in this world, and she is my fave. She's a badass. I love her. She flies wyverns. There were scenes in this, in Manon's point of view, that made me weep so much of the tears. It was so good. I don't even understand. Like, I don't understand how or why I liked this so much. And that's really where I've been sitting at so far, is like, I keep reading these books and I'm like, I don't know why I like these so much, but I do, especially because most of my friends do not like them. Here's looking at you, Katie Ann. I had the best time reading this book. So I'm just trash now, apparently. It's fine. And then our final city, we rounded out at Los Angeles. I was on Team Romance. Our prompt was to read a book that was not an adaptation, and I chose Witches of New Orleans. I don't remember the author name, but there should be a picture on the screen somewhere. I give that a 3 out of 5 stars. It is, I think, 4 short stories, or maybe 3, of this coven of witches in New Orleans, if that wasn't clear. And it was fine. It was very, like, you really just get like a day in the life of these witches, like each individual witch with their romantic interest, but there's never like, there's no plot, I guess. Like, there's no build up of like what's going to happen. You know exactly who the love interest is. You know everything's going to be fine. Like, there's no drama. It's just there, and it was fine. It was not great. It was fine. I also read Ima Koi volumes 2 and 3. These both got 3.5 out of 5 stars. Liked them less than the first book just because I feel like, again, not really my jam, but I did enjoy them as far as like, they were fine. I know that sounds awful, but that's where we're at. Again, cute girl, cute boy, romancy, they're fine. And that is it. That is everything that I read in the month of June. It was a lot of books. I know the first time we were here for like 25 minutes. Now I've been here for an additional 20. So I hope you get a much shorter video, and some of this is just me rambling on. If you made it this far in the video, leave me a runner emoji for the amazing race and therefore the amazing readathon. All of my reviews for these books will be linked down below, so you can find them on Goodreads. If you have any questions or would like to discuss these books with me, please hit me up in the comments down below. That is all I have for today. If you don't want to miss anything we have going on in the library in the future, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Bye!